Now let's go through the process of adding a brand new Crystal report to the menu and hooking it up. And this is a pretty quick process here. I'm going to go into Crystal and I'm going to start I'm just going to do a mailing label here. And we're going to just grab the cust address table since we're doing mailing labels. And we do just the normal city, state, zip stuff. And we've got a simple Crystal report here now outputting every single customer's labels or addresses. Now let's go ahead and add a parameter for customer ID. And we're going to hook this parameter up in our select expert. And I'm going to type something in here. And for SendGrow, we only have one. Let's see, I've got one that has more than one record. So you can see here we've got a Crystal report that's just like any other Crystal report you would have developed. And we're going to save this out here. I'm going to call it customer labels. And next I'm going to hook that up to my Logicity solution file.
That's not you're right. No, it's 2007. That makes more sense. 7, 8, 9. Oh, okay, so we're still in the contract. The original contract is like the
pull our login info here. And I'm going to hook this parameter up. Just like before, we pick which module we're going into, so custom order entry. And this time, as opposed to picking the order ID, I'm going to fill in the customer ID. Now we're going to leave it as view. We'll just leave the logging turned off. And now instantly what we're going to have, if we pull up our Logicity menu, is our new reports immediately showing up. So for all your users, if you want to publish a new report to them, you simply edit that solution file, save it, and the next time they pull this up, they're going to have all the reports. We'll pull up customer. I happen to have Windsor up here, so we're expecting to see their shipping labels come back. So those are all the steps for adding a brand new Crystal report to the Logicity menu. Any questions there?
Now, when you add these reports, they have to be done at the user's machine, correct?
No, not necessarily. What you typically would do if you were adding these Crystal reports is you'd first save your RPT file out. Most people have a network location like v:/Crystal reports or something like that.
Right.
So it would save that RPT file out there, and that's just getting the file out there. Next thing you do is you'd edit your Logicity solution file, and those solution files are also stored out on the network, and you would browse out to the Crystal report file as one of the actions there. And then that would instantly make them available to all your users. So it's not per workstation. It's shared as long as you have implemented it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next thing we mention here is that the way we've got things set up here, the only thing that really ties these reports to visual is the parameters. And as you may or may not expect at this point, these reports that you're putting in here don't have to be visual reports necessarily. So for example, if you've got an inventory management solution that you run in addition to visual, and you want to write some reports and link them into the visual like they're visual reports, but they're actually pulling from a different place, that will work completely fine. If you've got common data in between both systems, you can link them in using variables. If you don't have any common data, you can just leave the variables open, or the parameters open, and then people just have to type them in. I don't have a inventory management thing installed here, but let me give you a very much more simplified example. I've got, on my C drive here, I've got a Excel file where we've got the customer, number of employees, annual sales, just some basic sales data here. And I also wrote a Crystal report that runs against that Excel file. It has a prompt for the customer ID, and then it just returns some simple data. So if we wanted to add that into our solution file here and say, let's call this view additional customer information. Something else to point out at this point is that inside Solution Builder, we've typically been inserting those variables only in parameters. The rule of thumb, though, is any field you can type into, you can insert variables into. So, for example, we've got view additional customer information. I'm just going to do for and put in their variable for the customer ID. And we'll browse out to the RPT file. This RPT file doesn't require database info, so I'm leaving that blank. I'm going to read the parameters. I'm going to hook up my customer ID field to it. And we'll continue to view it, save, and that's instantly published out to all of my users at this point. So you can see here, by the time you pull this up, this isn't as useful, but it replaced that variable by the time it's pulled this screen up here. So those variables, as we're going to get into a little bit later, can be used in some other clever places like any of your email information, paths to files that it's pulling up, really a whole slew of different things. This one here, I'm just going to pull this report up, and what you'll see is this report seems integrated. We've got Windsor. It looks like this is coming out of Visual, but in reality, this data is coming out of Excel. And if you wanted to if for whatever reason you didn't want to link the data from the Crystal report to Visual, all you'd simply do is we just come in here and undefine that parameter. I'm just going to switch the whole thing back to prompt user. And if I ran this same dialog, then it would just prompt us, just like it would normally. So I'm looking at Windsor, but I'm going to pull up Sangro instead.